Hello, my friends. So sometimes, I'm Pastor Lou Kilgore, High Mountain Presbyterian Church, and this is a pastor's chat. It's a chance to, listen to the mind of a pastor, to get a pastor's view of the world. If that's any different than anybody else's, I don't really know. But if you haven't been here before, welcome. This is your chair. I guess the rules are you can't talk. But that's okay. My kids would, my wife maybe even too, would say he talks for both of us, so I'll talk for both of us. How's that today? I know a little late signing on today, but just like any other reality, for you to come in and had an appointment to sit down in my office, I might have gotten a phone call, which I did just before I was supposed to start my chat with you, so I apologize for being late. So I spent most of the day today thinking it was Monday. Somehow zeroing out in my mind all the events that happened yesterday, or maybe trying to hold on, make the week go a little slower, I don't know. It's Tuesday. Continuing into the season where the trees, in my view, the trees go from being stunningly beautiful to losing all their color. And I suppose the truth is sometimes in the wintertime I get a look and I think the trees and the sky are no less beautiful. But they are without color. The world turns gray. And availability of the sunlight to us is reduced. And there's been a lot of writing of late about that there are some of us on this planet that are really affected by the shortage of light. It changes the delicate balance. At least my yawn wasn't late. It changes the delicate balance of our psychological makeup, of our emotions and things, and affects us. So, light deprivation. I feel it. I feel it when I look out and it's only 6 o'clock and it's dark already. I always say it like as if it's the first time it's ever happened, you know? Like, it happens to me in the reverse cycle too. I love being aware that at 9:30 at night, that you can still see, it's still almost like daylight around those longest days of the year. And we're heading into October and November, and early in December will be the longest night of the year. So, the trend in the world, of which we're made up of, is all in that direction. A loss of color. We're coming inside for shelter. And so it makes sense then, doesn't it, that this would be the season in which we would ritually, or, I don't know, systematically deal with the ghosts and goblins of our lives. The ghosts of death and the ghosts of whatever. I said this yesterday. I had some time to lay down on the couch yesterday and wanted to cruise around some of the channels, and all of the channels have decided that it's Halloween scary gory movie time. So if you've never seen anybody stabbed by a big knife, you know, just turn on the television. Or someone digging their way out of a grave, or someone, I don't know, being scared to death and running, screaming for their life. If you don't have any of that going on in your life and you want it, just turn on the television. There's even, there's cartoons. I apologize. Sorry. There's even animated versions of these stories, and they're made up of characters. And animated, they don't really look all that scary. So then they get to still tell the scary story of our human existence. We win or we fight a battle against the things that seek our demise, or we are constantly being courted by the things that are not good for us, or that will destroy our life and destroy our love and destroy the happiness and the brightness and the sunshininess of our days. It's real. But it's not real, in my view, it's not real in the way that it's characterized. It's real. Yes, I've often said this. I don't really even know if it's actually true. But I used to say in my younger years as a pastor, I don't like to go to movies that are full of heartbreak and especially the scary movies, because the work that I do, and I go there gladly, is I go into the scary places. I'm there. I used to only watch cartoons. I loved watching cartoons. I love things that are light and silly and take my mind off the need to think deeply about something. I like that. Nowadays, I have a couple of, if I say video games, you won't know what I'm talking about. I'm just talking about little moving dots. It's a little bit like playing tic-tac-toe on my phone screen, because then that gives me time for downtime. So yesterday I described this narrative, or this folk narrative, as I understand it. It's not intended to be a scientific presentation, but as I understand it, the way the things that we do have developed in our culture, and they become part of our culture. The night of the living dead, the parade of skeletons and things that normally would completely creep us out and that we want very little to do with, come back to us in this season. And we do it in a way to try to burlesque them, I think. That's a phrase I learned a while ago, that burlesquing something is when you take it and you hold it up, and in some ways you're making fun of it in order to sort of disempower it. The place I learned it, just as a little sidelight, was that many of the early Christian hymns and the language of the hymns, crown him with many crowns, all these ones about the royalty and that sound like coronation marches. They were coronation marches, but they were coronation marches burlesquing the imperial power of the dynasty of Rome, of its kings, and all of those things. They would use the language, they stole the language of the imperial dynasties and the magnificence of the things that they would go through to show that somehow this mortal human was divine God on earth, emperor to all emperors. And the church had a way of borrowing. They had a way of borrowing those images when they would talk about crowning Jesus with the crown of many crowns. And, we know Jesus was the guy who died on the cross. He suffered and he rose again. But they were trying to say, your monarchy, your rulers, they are a shadow of what is real. And so they would burlesque them. They burlesque. Nowadays, the culture we live in burlesques the church. Oh, it does. The commercials that borrow from hymn tunes, and my favorite to go to always is listen to car commercials. They talk about helping you to find your soul, to save your soul. They talk about these deep subjects of our inner world, of our life. They use the language of faith and trust and reliability and all that. Those are all words that find their first meaning in the religious rituals and in the church and in faith. And they drag them out and then they burlesque them. And they say, this car will complete your soul. You will find room and solace for your soul and sacred space to be protected, a sanctuary. So in this season of the dying or the dormancy of the trees and the grass and all the plants, the sort of wilting look that takes place, when it appears that death in general is winning, it appears, and that we ourselves should expect to be assaulted by death, by disease, by things that go bump in the night, things that scare us, things that, your list might be different than mine. My list of things that frighten me are very, the IRS would be a really good one for me because I never feel comfortable that I've done what I need to do. I mean, if the IRS really wanted to make Halloween scary, they ought to send out greetings in their normal IRS envelopes, because I'm sure you're not like me. I go to the post office and find an envelope from the IRS, and I'm like, I'm in my scared category. I don't know why. I really. So, what are your ghosts and goblins? What are your fears? I think this year was the first time, I'm not sure, to remember better. I think this is the first time at age 65 that thing that my parents always said about teenagers, which was, we believed we were invincible. Nothing was ever going to happen to us. And teenagers, they still have it today. But I think it was this year that I wrestled more with the ghost of my own humanity, my own knowledge of death and of its coming. Maybe the doors opened a little wider with my mom dying. I know that brought it close. But I have not ever really thought, I could be next. This year has brought that ghost and goblin and thing that goes bump in the night closer to me. It has. So I've been contemplating my mortality. And it's a good season to do it. But the rest of the picture is that in that journey into our mortality, the leaders of our faith, the people that have given the faith to us, that we've inherited it from, have always reminded us to remember them. To remember the strength of endurance that human beings have. That we are able to withstand. We look fragile, and sometimes, especially in the movies, right? The bad guys are big, they're great big, and they have awful weapons of destruction, and however you want to imagine it. But human beings are very resourceful, and they're very strong, and they endure. They endure. Sometimes they die. But even in their dying, there is an enduringness to us. We are strong. And we're stronger together. You've heard that through this whole thing, right? Stronger together. But we are strong. We have an invincibility about us. And some of these really scary movies, as dark and as bloody and as awful as things get in the movies. I mean, many of the smaller characters that didn't get paid much to be in the movie, they die. But the ones that we grow to care about in the story, I mean, sometimes they suffer. But we watch these stories because most of these movies, the characters that we care about survive. They endure. In the faith tradition, in the Christian tradition, All Saints' Day was a day to remember those that have been in our lives who were strong, who endured, who stayed true to their principles, who did not abandon their life force. And by remembering them, we draw them into ourselves. It's a little bit like that discipline that I preached about a couple weeks ago about counting your blessings and looking back on your life to see the hand of God in your life. The phone's bothering me today. I don't think anybody from Lubbock, Texas is really calling me. So in the same way that if you want to see the hand of God, let God put you in the cleft of the rock so you can look back and you can count and see, especially to the times of the pinch points, when it was really bad, when it seemed hopeless. And here you are. Go to those times. Touch them in your mind and your heart and draw from them, because those are the places where God is revealed to us. And so in the same way, another place to go to is into the stories of those who have, sometimes in large ways, sometimes just from a word, have nurtured us in faith, have shared with some level of integrity about the struggle of their own lives, so that it caught our attention and we knew they were speaking the truth about their hardship or their heartbreak. But in the same moment, they bore witness to their faith, their trust in God, their belief in God's love for them and for others. I'm suggesting that you might do it in this season leading up to All Saints' Day. But I think, really, if I were to try to do it, it would mean going back through calendars and remembering preachers that I've heard preach. Preaching has affected my life in powerful ways. Preachers have. Teachers, not just teachers in seminary, but teachers in college. Teachers who sat down along the road with me and felt their calling to share both their struggle and their faith. And sometimes the faith is passed on not through the language of external faith. I'm not talking about Jesus as my Lord and Savior or whatever, but the source of confidence and faith in their life. And ultimately, yes, faith in God. How many there have been? How many over the years? My own mother and my father. I heard my father preach sermon after sermon after sermon, and I shocked him 2 weeks ago because I told him that I actually remembered a phrase. He was just recently asked at his age, at 94, to preach a sermon, and so he preached a sermon about heaven. He's been thinking a lot of it these days. And I told him that I figured out my age because I know what church building we were sitting in, and I know how old I was when we lived there. And I told him I remember him preaching about heaven back when I was 8 years old. 8 years old. And I remembered him describing that heaven, while some people picture it as angels, we're all going to get a pair of wings and we're going to fly around with wings in heaven, and there's going to be streets of gold and there's going to be harps. And this is what I remember about his sermon. He was so honest, and he said, I don't really I don't relish the idea of flying around with white wings. That doesn't sound all that fabulous to me. And he said, also, what good are streets of gold? There'll be nothing to spend or buy, so. And then lastly, and this is what stuck most to an 8-year-old child, he said, I don't really want to play the harp. The harp, it's not my favorite instrument. So, my father, with his honesty at that point, knitting my heart and my soul to the journey of faith, its honesty and its hopes. So I'm going to continue on this theme for these chats because it's Halloween and it's All Hallows Eve and it's All Saints Day. And the threats of the world and the anxiety about our lives are high right now. They're high. The conflict, the potential for conflict is high. You can feel it. This is a dark night of the soul, which is lasting more than one night. It's upon us. And as it moves on us, and the environment around it is saying, well, this is the time of year when this stuff happens. We're going to work to anchor our souls and our hearts and our minds to the saints who have gone before. You know as well as I do that communities of human beings have come and gone and they have faced scarier things than what we face. So we will listen, hold on, try to remember. I'm encouraging you as you leave my office today, try to think back over those great saints. The saints that could be attributed, miracles could be attributed to them. One is that whatever shape or form your faith is in today, they help to shape it. So, I told you I was going to talk for both of us today. I hope in some ways you felt something that helped to express how you're feeling, and that in so doing, maybe some of these words for guidance along the way might be a help to you. My prayer always is the same, that God will bless you. Bless you. Bless you with peace and hope and strength for the day and rest and sleep for the night. I'll see you tomorrow, my friends, and it will be Wednesday.